everyone, and welcome to this great episode of the Top Cyber Pro podcast. I'm Jim West, founder and CEO of TopCyberPro.com, and today we have a wonderful guest. I've actually known this guest for, I would say, about a good decade plus. Time flies. I first met Waylon when he was actually he was brought over to Southwest Asia to a military base to do some DIACAP training. So I kind of dated us both there, Waylon. But I mean, Waylon has been in IT cyber since like the DITSCAP days, probably even before that. Then DIACAP, and where I got fortunate to cross paths with Waylon. But you guys know me. I like to turn it over to my guests. They can talk about themselves, what their impacts on industry, things they've done, places they've worked, and just the great things that folks like him does. So without further ado, Waylon Krush.
Thanks a lot, Jim. Yeah, it's been a while. I'll even date myself a little bit more. So I I first started doing dial-up and kind of authenticating to open telnet sessions, and I went in the army, and I was lucky enough to get into what was called signals intelligence at the time in crypto, and from there I moved into something called CNO, computer network operations. So CNOs exploit, attack, defend. And then I got moved to a headquarters unit. I won't talk much about that, but that's how I ended up in DC. And they had some mission there, but what they really had was lots of opportunity. So I was in the National Capital Region, and I worked for the I call it the Death Star, AT&T, and I that's my first job out of the Army. I served 7 years, and then I was working on a project that was you know basically a really fast Perl database. I guess that also tells you, kind of dates me. But we looked for anomaly analysis. It was a really good program, but I was in the old AT&T though before it went bankrupt, and then SBC came and bought it up, and so then I was unemployed, and that's the point where I ended up getting into like what you're talking more on the compliance and the governance risk compliance side. So it's being voluntold. I found out cyber outside of that community, like when I'm talking about hardcore cyber, really didn't quite sell at that point. It was more like, I need to follow these rules, and you need to tell me and help me how to, kind of help me do that. So I actually start with, you know, gosh, it was the mid 2000s per se, and it was GISRA, government information, and that was basically a checklist. It didn't matter if you're actually doing anything or not. And then I got voluntold into FISMA, and then that changed, and it's been updated multiple times. And when AT&T was basically went bankrupt, I was unemployed, and so I started a company called Lunar Line. Lunar Line was I call it a full spectrum cyber security firm. So we dealt with Fortune 50s, we dealt with the intelligence community, we dealt with all the organizations you could imagine, and we did training. So we ran school cybersecurity. We had managed security services. So we did managed SOC, including security operations centers for organizations on their site for closed networks. We built a lot of tools that organizations may even be still using to this day, because we were on programs to develop cyber tools. So we built tools that would automatically STIG, tools that would prioritize threat, malware, vulnerability data with Stix, Taxi, and Cybox. We built tools that would automate penetration testing. We actually built Sniper. That program was System Network Information Attack Platform Enterprise Resource. So we turned that into a commercial product, which was kind of an automated pen testing platform. We ran multiple botnets on the deep web, the dark web, and the open web to do enumeration of threat data. So if one of our customers, their name came up in some auction, or they were just pasting stuff to sites, we could pick that up and inform them very quickly. So I did that for 17 years. And I was one of those, I would say, I always said I was a hands-on CEO. So most of the time I was in the field. I was working for government agencies and commercial entities. I liked the work. I'm very hands-on. And then we sold it to Motorola Solutions, and then COVID happened. And I since then, and this is one of the reasons I reached out to Jim. We've been working on a new ZeroTrusted AI, so a company that really focuses on how do you protect some of the most important missions. And to me, what the biggest risk in the world is really is how do we not just make AI compliant, but how do we ensure that we're not training the wrong things and it doesn't get out of control? And so building those guardrails and that safety into those systems way ahead of time is really our mission at Zero Trusted AI. And that's our focus. And that's what I'll mostly be talking about today.
So there's a couple things you said there, and thank you for giving me such a great summary, in your background. What people don't understand is a lot of what Waylon was talking about sounds like current technologies that are normal in the environment of a secure operations environment and enterprise. But Waylon was hands-on building these things before they were commonplace in enterprise networks. So everything he said there, which kind of sounds like, well, that's what we do today. That's today, 2024. Waylon was doing this 10 plus years ago, building these systems that were automatically doing the hunts, doing the analysis. Waylon's at the forefront of this. So when he talks about being a hands-on CEO, which was another great thing I love that you said there, Waylon, he's all about it. He just doesn't, talk the talk. The guy walks the walk every day. So when Waylon reached out to me a few days ago, said, "Hey, I've been developing this for about 2 years now, and I kind of want to bring it to the public's eye." I said, "Hey, I have a podcast. This would be a great platform to do that." And so what we're going to do today is I'm going to turn it over to Waylon a little bit because I still have some conversation I want to have with Waylon about his career because he's only touched the just the surface of his wonderful and great career. But what Waylon's going to do for us today, he is going to demo capabilities and use cases with his new Zero Trusted AI platform. But before we get to that, which is the meat and potatoes of why we're on this podcast, I want to just focus back on you, Waylon, because really, when we talk about products and services, at the end of the day, we want to know more about the idea. So let's start with Zero Trusted. Give me the why. I know you said you're concerned about privacy, you're concerned about keeping things within rails. You mentioned what I would consider ethics that are involved into the concept of this and the training of the AI. But let's answer the big question. Why Zero Trusted AI?
Well, really, the first time I picked up and started reading about zero trust, I was like, this isn't new to us, right? So, Jim, we've been talking about this from the beginning of the time. We just call it something different, right?
Yes.
And I was like, maybe it will finally be adopted. So, I remember defense in depth. We basically in cybersecurity, what we do is we take something we really want to happen, and then we change the lexicon and hope there's a bigger adoption, right? And so I was reading Zero Trust, and it took some of the kind of controls that we are supposed to be doing in DCID, and even some of the NIST controls and different stuff like that, and it really focused on how do we get start from no trust at all, and that really excited me because I was like, we said we were going to do this forever, but no one has really come out with the full architecture to explain that. And so I started looking around and I'm like, so what's the opportunities in this market? And the the reality is that if you're going to really do zero trust, you can't just go buy one of these existing platforms because they weren't built that way, right? They are the legacy of the cybersecurity world, and they might throw some extra options on them and that type of capability, and they're talking the talk, and they're changing the lexicon to say they're old network devices or zero trust, and we saw a lot of that, and we said, okay, we obviously know we can't do this. We can't just go out and buy a company and then migrate it to zero trust. We got to build it from scratch. And then next is the other piece of like, okay, this is a really exciting technology. What do we want to use it on? And even back in my AT&T days, it's great that everybody loves to use AI, ML, and you'll get the arguments about the lexicon there. And we were arguing that forever, right? And if it wasn't for the large language models and the transformers coming through and working very well, I don't think we would even be talking as much as we do today about it. It's just finally somebody got there. They did a really great job. It works well. And so at the same time, you know, uh, on the AI ethics and just this, call it cyber safety side, it's happening so quickly. Like zero trust was one of those architectures. It's like, where does this where is this going to have the most impact, and what's the thing that's going to have the most impact, and something I want to work on. It's going to be in the AI realm, and the reason is like I said, we were working on AI in AT&T. We actually had this database called Daytona that we had in the labs, and it was super fast, and we could do anomaly analysis, and we looked at anomalies and mostly dialed number systems and pot systems, if you remember those. But it could find, issues, and it could actually guess where the next problem was going to be. And so getting to work on a lot of those type of things throughout my career, and then a lot of the originally learning systems that you and I have interfaced with just because we're on the cyber side, um, you know, it, then seeing that evolution, it really triggered this, like, okay, we have to be zero trust, but we have to be zero trust focused on AI, and really, how do we get to the point where we really know that these models are doing the right thing, so they're reliable, and how do we put guardrails in place so that we're not training them wrong things, or we're giving our intellectual property up, or you're going to see, one of the problems we saw right away with our customers is they're using large language models whether they're getting permission or not. So you remember, Jim, when we first dealt with cloud and cloud security, I just remember people just pushing stuff up on the cloud, which was just a data center and a, compute and storage, and no security, no thought about it, no, it was kind of like, then we got caught in this now we got to backtrack, and we got to secure these environments from the gate guard to the hypervisor, from the hypervisor all the way up the stack. And we're in the same place in AI. Companies are out there on LLMs, they're uploading their freaking IP, they're uploading their proprietary pricing data, they're uploading PII and PHI and all this because they want pivot tables, they want it to write the reports for them. So the technology's so good that the user base is willing to jump security, safety, and reliability to
That's
get
the
the
way it's
answer. And I
always
get
been,
that.
Waylon. I mean, obviously,
Yep.
convenience, technology enables, things to be faster, better, quicker, and more convenient. And so users will always gravitate towards things that make their lives easier and convenient, which is a good thing when you can exponentially increase your capacity and make things faster. But like you said, that acceptance, that indirect acceptance of risk, when stakeholders and leaders are aware that this is happening in an organization, but aren't doing the due diligence to make sure it's done in a secure manner. And I know that in the world of DoD, they're always kind of behind the power curve, if you will. And this is another example where, with this explosion of AI, that they're very, very slow on their feet, if you will, to adopt the right measures to be able to utilize the technology in a secure manner. I do want to kind of back up just a little bit there. You was talking about how things had earlier systems had transitioned, and eventually what became AI, or I'm sorry, zero trust actually was what I was wanting to talk about. It's funny because zero trust, there was different versions or iterations. The last big acronym people might remember was IAM, or IDAM, identity authentication. It was like a heavy dose of those security controls. And of course, a lot of companies jumped on that bandwagon, pushing out their solutions, and their solution stacks, as I'll call it, with IDAM. And everybody was, as soon as the acronym hit the streets and it was a hot buzzword, everybody jumped to that. But that was a precursor to what now the new buzzword is, ZTA, Zero Trust Architecture. Of course, everybody out there, oh yeah, we're doing Zero Trust Architecture. It's like almost overnight. As you mentioned, these legacy systems kind of getting slapped on a few other control measures and just some new marketing material. And now everybody in the game is doing Zero Trust Architecture. But I'm going to throw another solution out there that is really what true Zero Trust Architecture is, and it's commercial solutions for classified. Because ultimately, if you do CSFC, that is a zero trust solution through and through, with multiple, defense and depth measures, that not every organization can accommodate all of the controls that are in a CSFC solution. But that is a great example of, zero trust architecture before it was called zero trust architecture. So, Waylon, with that, but talking about going back and back, I know you mentioned that you served the country honorably, and that's kind of what got you in IT cyber. But is there a particular story or moment in time, if we was to jump in a wayback machine to a young Waylon Krush that said, "Hey, this is what I want to do as my career. This is what I want to do with the rest of my life. What is that story that you if you're willing to share with people watching this? Because I always feel like sharing the stories of how we did our day one or our first step into tech is what makes us human, because we weren't always level 99 top of our game like we are today. We all got our start with that one decision or the one story that got us into what we are today. So do you mind sharing that story?
I mean, I was very fortunate. I was in the right place at the right time. I was working on a project and I got an award for it. It was um, actually I identified the first ever information operations attacks, live attacks at U.S. systems, and so I won an impact award for that. And I was watching a specific area, and I said, "Look, I know what's going on here because of my previous work in, like I said, before I went in the army, I could tell they were they were basically at the time, there's chunking and heap attacks, and remember buffer overflows when they actually didn't check buffers. So
Yeah.
I could recognize stuff like that, and they reached out to NASA and some other organizations were being hacked at the time, and they fixed the problem. And then what happened that like push my career in that direction right away. So I was um, at the time it was General Noonan. He came out to our base and he told me, "Hey, we got this great LIWA. It was called at the time Land Information Warfare Activity, and I want you to be in it." I was like, "Oh, great! It sounds like this super cyber techie thing." And I showed up, and they saw I was a 98 kilo at the time, which meant I was signals intelligence. They're like, "Oh, you just can break into cell phones and stuff like that. That's your mission here." And I was like, "That's not what I was told. I was sold this whole deal." But because I had a good boss, they were like, "You can be on the red team, the blue team, you can go on these exercises." And because I was in a green suit, which, contractors at the time could not do a lot of the bigger exercises. I mean, they were allowed to be on the sidelines, but like when we would do a Navy and Marine Corps and stuff like that, if you weren't in uniform, you weren't getting on the keyboard. So that was another thing, right place, right time. They had to show me a lot of things. I had to be trained, and I was also so interested that I was training myself. I was also lucky enough to be studying computer science at the time, and my buddies were pushing me to write code with them at night and stuff like that. And I think that that crypto background, that signals intelligence background, and then going into CNO along with the coding is like, you know, lucky Waylon, you have the right skills to actually do some stuff now on the outside. And yeah, like I said, it was right place, right time, but I took advantage of it. I can't lie. I mean, I was
Yeah.
like, oh, this is great. I'm going to go into this field. And I thought it was going to grow faster than it did. It wasn't until, I would say the mid 2000s when commercial organizations started spending money because they had to be hacked many times before they got that this was a real thing. DoD and IC, we already knew we'd been hacked since the 90s, so we were always working those projects constantly.
Well, that's wonderful, kind of how life just kind of the path appears, right? And I love hearing people's stories of how they got started. So thank you for sharing yours. Since we're talking about the way back and your start and your trajectory in your career, if someone was watching this right now and they're on the fence, let's say they're mid-career, they've been doing a job for, 10, 15 years, and they're just kind of stuck. What I call, they've hit the ceiling in their career, in their particular career field, and they're looking, hey, I hear in the news every week there's this shortage of personnel needed. There's so much, there's a gap in cybersecurity. Hey, I think I could do that. Or if they're saying to themselves, well, I don't think I could do that, I'm not that technical. What would be something you would say to that person that's watching this, to let them know, you can do it? And what are some maybe websites, resources, people on social media you would recommend them to follow, YouTube channels, etc.? Would you recommend? Because I don't like telling people go sign up for this college course or go sign up for this $5,000 to $7,000 boot camp. I'm not a big fan of that. I always like to tell people some free resources that they can start clicking on and searching today. What would be some things you would recommend?
Sure. I was also lucky enough in school cybersecurity, we literally trained tens of thousands of, uh, I'll call it anyone from someone just starting their career as like an intern to some of the more advanced operators that are out there, both in threat hunting and pen testing and that type of stuff. So I've been lucky enough to really be. And look, I came out and met you. Like you've got these guys and gals in the field that are just like amazing, right? And people don't even know that all this stuff's going on. Um, but I think first of all, anyone can go into cyber. I think a lot of people think, oh, you got to be technical. That's just not true. The higher paying job, litigation side of things, they're the compliance side of things. So, you could be the sexiest hacker on earth, and if you're not on the dark side, you're probably not making that much money. Um, but but if you're a CISO, a chief information security officer, or you're writing policy, or you're helping these groups, then it's a great career. And I would tell you that, you know, nobody should be afraid of it, because one of the great things about the cyber field is that no matter what your background is, it applies, right? The good thing about cyber is one of those careers that goes across all the sectors and all the areas of work. So if you, let's say you work on farm equipment, well, good. You can be a cybersecurity engineer in the farm. You know more about that farm equipment than anyone else. You're going to be able to identify vulnerabilities, mitigations, and that type of stuff. And then you can use, your training in cyber to apply it and get a depth in that area, and you become an expert in that area. And I guarantee you there's farmers gonna be like, my automated system over here just went offline. What's going on? And so I think the career is open to everyone. I think the other thing about the career, that if you're on the sidelines, this is one of the most important careers you can go into. Like, I would say the military, first responders, and cybersecurity is up there because you have a mission that's you're helping people. It's critical, and you're doing good, right? So I think a lot of people don't. It's a lot of work. I'm not gonna, first of all, even with AI, we're completely undermanned and underwomaned in the field. I mean, it's just known. You have the job of 10 people, and that's the way it is. So you'll learn fast, whether you like it or not, because you're going to work a lot of hours. But, on the training side, it, I would just say that I would agree. Don't go spend the big money on all these boot camps and training until you really find what you like. So go out. There's free training on. I mean, you can search, cybersecurity along with your field, and there's probably something on YouTube or even on these free courses online, right? These massive online courses, and you can take that class and see if you really like it. But I would tell you the other thing that is interesting is there's so much opportunity in cyber. Maybe I don't know, you're a plumber and you want to get into cyber, and there's not a lot of content. Well, the best way to learn is to train. And so I would say maybe you just take the basic attributes of what you know about plumbing and how they relate to security, and you start training that, on a smaller level, and you'll learn a lot because you're expected to know a lot. So I think that would be one of my suggestions. Um, on the training side too, I also do think that once you get in the field, and we all know this, Jim, you can see it behind your name and my name. I mean, I'm just going to tell you, you got to get a certification, right? And certifications have different levels of adoption, and some of them are super advanced. You have a lot more advanced ones than I have, and some of them are, I mean, you give classes for this. You can train people on understanding the lexicon and taking these tests. But I can tell you, you the most important thing you can do is just get your hands on, volunteer, work with one of the nonprofits, work with organizations that are looking for help, because that skill of doing is the first most important. The second is the cert. I hate to say it. I mean, you can have a college degree in computer science and threat intelligence and da 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 da. But if you don't have a cert for whatever reason, this is where industry is, you're not going to get a job. And so get that experience, get that cert, and then use your existing contacts to find some type of start position. Be okay with starting over low, because the other great thing about cyber is you won't be low for long. I mean, there's just such a huge demand. I've seen interns literally be CISO in 5 years for organizations, right? I mean, that sounds
And where else?
crazy.
What other industry can you go from entry level to the executive
Right.
boardroom in 5 years? I mean, that's,
Yep.
right there. That's opportunities galore. So thank you for sharing that perspective and insights, Waylon. Well, I know folks have been watching up to this point going, okay, when we're going to get to the good part? Well, we're here at the good part. So what I'm going to do now, Waylon, I'm going to turn over control to you. So let me get this done right here. I need to do, let's see, Waylon, make host. So Waylon, you are the host now, and I know you got a lot of good stuff to show us. So I'm gonna just lean back in my chair and while Waylon's getting prepared, everyone, Zero Trusted AI is going to do a lot of things very securely. So knowing Waylon, as long as I have, and knowing the kind of cyber professional he is, things like baked in security, building things from the ground up with security built in, it's very important when you're talking about these new emerging technologies, because a lot of times people are so quick to rush something to market to try to capitalize on, what we call the gold rush, to try to rush in and make as much money as possible. This is not who Waylon is. Waylon is a man of very high integrity. I could say in my top 10 most the highest levels of integrity, Waylon is in that top 10. As long as I've known him, he's been, again, a man of integrity, and he would not put his name or be associated with any product that did not meet his levels and criterias and standards for systems. So when we mention things about ethics and AI, I know this man is on it. He's gonna, hopefully show us a lot of great things and uses for this AI system. So, Waylon, hopefully I've done enough hyping there. So,
That's great hype. Yeah. So Jim, let me ask, can you guys actually see my screen? Because it didn't come up and
I
say,
think you have to share your screen.
yeah, I went and it said you're not authorized.
1 second. So I know you're the host, so I can't do anything, but there
There you
should
go.
be a
I'll do it again.
share.
Here, I see you. Okay, now it's blue. So that's
Okay, there
probably
we
a
go.
good. Great. Yeah. Okay, so really quick, I got, I'm gonna go slides and I'll go right to the dashboard. Just kind
Okay.
of give people a background too. Just so I don't, so here's Zero Trusted AI. We got the Terminator's hand in there. Never trust AI, no matter what.
It's funny
And
how
that's the
James
idea.
Cameron did a whole film franchise to warn us about the dangers of a sentient AI. But just to let people know, AI as of today is not sentient. Will it have the potential to be sentient one day? That's to be determined in our future. I never want to say never, but I love that. Nice touch with the Terminator hand. Continue. I'm sorry to
Yeah.
interrupt, Waylon.
That really gave us a mission. We're like, okay, it's going to change. It's going to get better and better and better. And we know we gotta think about that. So overview. I'm going to show you this, but this is some of the stuff that's going on in the background, right? First of all, one of our first customers was someone that had already built their own internal LLM, right? And they had multiple LLMs that there's a bunch of things with LLMs that we know that are tricky, hallucinations, data drift, and there's reliability issues and different stuff like that. But one of the customers we initially had, they were worried about people knowing who they were, right? And so they didn't want Jim West and Company and all the employees to be identified as Jim West and Company when they were doing these searches. So the first thing we did is, out of the playbook is we ensured that we created a token ring and we anonymize all those sessions and those tokens to the LLM. So, if you are Jim West and Company and you're out there and you're building some great antenna system that you don't want anyone to know about, but you want to use LLMs to, get some specs and help write reports and really do the marketing side, but you don't want to give the program up. You really want to have that anonymization capability, right? The other reason is going back to something Jim brought up earlier, is just aggregation attacks, right? So let's say that 50 people are working on a project and it's called Rainbow Unicorn. The LLM is going to figure out what Rainbow Unicorn is after those 50 queries from those same people from that same token ring, if that makes sense. So there are some attacks out there. It's always trust but verify. The LLMs say, well, we won't give that mission up or that sensitivity if you pay us extra for privacy. But like anything else, trust but verify. We're third party. You don't have to worry about that, right? Reliability, LLMs are great, but they don't always come back with the right answers. They basically, there's hallucinations, there's prompt injections. We saw that with Google. We also look for copyright and plagiarism and training attacks. And why that's important is that a lot of this data, as you probably know if you're reading anything about AI and LLMs, it's trained legally or illegally on other people's data. And so when you're creating an output from that, you want to make sure that you're not plagiarizing someone else's work or what the output is, what percentage of it's AI, how different it is from the original content. And I think that's really important. And then going back to the security and privacy of things, you know, what we do is we create and the ability for you to go in and run it just like you would on ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, or whatever LLM of your choice of the day, Palm. Um, but the difference is it looks the same, it feels the same, but we're going in the background identifying any security privacy issues that you have in the prompt. So once that happens, we automatically, you'll see that red content up there, it'll identify it, right? And we're using AI to do that. And then it's going through and it's fictionalizing it. So Jim West becomes Waylon Krush. Why? Because we still want to keep context for the LLM, but we don't want to give up our proprietary data, our pricing, our IP, or anything like that when we send it to a third-party LLM. And then last but not least is we have requirements as organizations, whether it be a military, a Fortune 500, a financial, a healthcare. We got GDPR, we got HIPAA, we got NIST. You have sensitive data that you're feeding into these documents or uploading to these LLMs, whether that be PII, PHI, that kind of stuff. And so this is, I just wanted to give you a background before I went into the full scale of things. And also, this is just my background. We encrypt everything, right? And so part of what we've learned in the cyber community is, first of all, you do software assurance on your codes, you build the code securely, you get the vulnerabilities out of it before you put it into a live environment. But the other thing is trust that someone's going to find a vulnerability, something's going to come up. So you don't want the ability for an adversary to break into it. So we encrypt at rest, in motion, in transit. And I think the other reason that's important in zero trust, let's say that these systems are getting a lot more smarter, right? And they are. TLS doesn't actually implement zero trust because you get to a proxy, it breaks open the encryption, and then it does SSL forwarding or TLS forwarding. And so you have this area, you're trusting the system to break the crypto for you. And we're like, that's not really zero trust. We need to fix that crypto issue before we build the platform. And so that was one of the things we really focused on. And then the data leaks. Like if you have every single company, IP that makes them who they are. And LLMs are so great at helping us write these reports and build this data up that you're going to use them no matter what. So we wanted to be able to kind of prevent those data leaks to happen. So I'll show you how we do that. And I'll get out of the slides and I'll just go
Well,
right
William, before
into
you advance real quick, there's just a couple of things I really liked that what you just talked about. If you don't mind going back to that one slide real quick.
oh, sure.
One of the things that you mentioned was when you talked about copyright. So data aggregation or the term that they're using now in industry and in the legal conversations regarding AI is data scraping. And so, I'm an author and I have several works. And so I'm invested into the outcomes of these discussions regarding data scraping because we're talking copyright as well as intellectual property. And I think that this is a very important conversation that more and more people need to be having when they're thinking about building and training these AI models, from an ethics and just doing the right thing perspective. So I love that you guys have a focus on that's actually a function or rather a feature of your system. So that right there is just beautiful that you've already thought about that because we have yet to see laws get on the books to officially address this with our government. And so the fact that you're leaning forward with a secure focus, I applaud you for that. So I just want to kind of make comment on that. And then the last thing is regarding your encryption. Kudos on that as well. I'd love to hear more about that as well. So I didn't mean to interrupt, but I did want to just kind of praise you for having that focus on copyright and intellectual property rights. So good for you and good for Zero Trusted AI.
Oh, thanks. It's actually one of the things I think the customers are the most happy with, right? Because they're building content reports and they're publishing them, and they don't want to come back and get sued or lose their job because really it was someone else's content. And then, really quick, I didn't go into this, but I'm going to show you guys the UI, right? And so just a background with me and my partner, we built the UI so you could see that the system in action, but we don't just deploy that way, meaning that if Jim, you build your own app and you're like, I want to include chatbot, I've got my own retrieval augmented generation and vector database set up. I got my own LLMs. Our technology is meant to be that middleware between the user and the AI. So, if you're going to see the visual stuff that we're doing, and we're doing that to show you the capability, but we have a REST API. You can plug this into your own applications. Unlike a lot of companies out there just throwing open source LLM and calling themselves a AI company, we're more on the side of no, we're going to help you secure that LLM. We're going to look for violations or any type of entropy issues with it, or security and privacy issues, and identify that so you can fix it. And so I bring this up because a lot of people are like, well, I don't want to use your UI. I want to build this into my own application. And we do that. And our deployment is AWS, Azure. It's also standalone. So you can literally deploy this entire system in a closed network, right? You're gonna have a certain difference in functionality, but I'll talk about that too. It's just important to know I'm showing you the UI, but if you're one of those developers and you're like, dang it, Waylon, I don't want to use your UI. I have my own app, I have my own chat bots. I want to ensure the data secure. I don't want to send our data outside, and I want the reliability. And the other thing that it's important to note just on this picture, it shows you where we control the encryption. We still encrypt your authenticators at rest, in motion, in transit to the LLMs, right? That still happens. But the red there just shows you, but we don't own the full encryption. We can't, if they decide to do something in TLS or break the zero trust model, since we're not on the other side of the fence, we can't control that. But for your custom LLMs, your custom implementations, we can give you that full scale zero trust model.
Okay.
All right, let's get to it. So I think I have it here. That's the website. So log in. Make sure it's funny. Hopefully I have the right login here. But you can see that. So this is the screen, and all the screen is it's Chat GPT like, or any of the GPTs that you might be using. And that's because we just didn't want you to have to retrain on something that you're already using, right? So this just gives you an easy interface. I have some prompts already created down here just to show you. And they already have violations. And that's what I just want to show you, is the
Okay.
violation side. So I clicked it. It's loading my prompts. And you can preload those prompts however you want. And you can select also all the models that you want. And I'll show you in the settings, as many models as you want to send your prompt to. But you see what happened right away is, as I sent it, it's, first of all, I guess I have most of the GPT models set up in this version right now, and I'll show you the other ones we have. But it's going through, and it's actually taking all the variables that are in that session, and it's sent to each one of those models. And now it's doing a diff. So it's actually looking at the difference between the responses. It's also looking for consensus. So let's say you have some data drift, or you have some injection attacks. One of them is giving a more concise answer based on how you've trained the model. And this is what's cool, and I didn't talk about this either, Jim, is you see these little fingers up, this little reinforced learning kind of thing. We made it easy. The most important thing when you're using these LLMs is they get better and better and better for you and your organization. The problem is, let's say you spent all this time in your organization in ChatGPT-4, and now you're deciding you're going Google or something. You're changing completely. Well, all that fine-tuning data, all that reinforced data is staying with them and not your new capability. However, we retain all that fine-tuning information, all of those prompts, all of that enhancement that, right now it says ChatGPT 3.5 is 95, but you might read the answer in 4 and say, no, I like that one better. I'm going to say that's not the right answer, but this is. And so it allows you to do that. And I'll show you how we'll do that when we go through the actual responses. And then going back to, you can see it identified this information. It identified some PII, some credit card numbers, so some PCI, PII data. And then it went in and automatically went through and fictionalized the data. So you have two choices. You can fictionalize the data, right? But keep the context. So the LLM still gives you a good response. the user doesn't even know, to tell the truth, because look at my answer. It came back with Alex Johnson. So then we actually take those variables and put them back into the response. So the user, first of all, we didn't break any security or privacy issues, right? The user didn't know, and they got the same answer with the same variables in the same report. So you don't have to go do copy, cut, paste in your report when you get it back. You actually get context, and you get your original answers that you asked it.
Okay.
The other thing that happened there is we did an ensemble. So, we went out to multiple LLMs with the same question, and we actually looked at and said, okay, let's do some analysis. So you can see here, um, it actually tells you the prompt engineering method that was used. So zero shot, semantic novelty low. So since it's low, the model itself is not trying to guess, so we're probably not going to have a lot of hallucinations, right? Text generation, whatever the modal is, text, video, audio, that type of stuff. And then sentiment was neutral. Like you didn't go in there and say, I am Jim West, an expert at SQL for 50 years. And so the sentiment's neutral. It shows you the scores and why that score was higher. So we can see why ChatGPT actually scored higher in this, because GPT-4 gave us additional information we don't care about. I wanted this SQL answer. You gave it to me. Thank you. I don't need to know about security issues with the actual prompt I sent, because I'm dealing with that, right? And then you come down here and you can see the violation and the percentage fixed. So this is back in our area there, Jim. It
Yep.
said you broke GDPR, CCPA, GIBLA, and PCI DSS, but we fixed 100% of it. So you didn't actually break it, but we're going to keep that in a log, because we want to make sure that you're not, from a training perspective, if Waylon's always in there and he's always breaking the security and privacy policy, he might need some reinforced training or some things that we can fix. So when he's not on a controlled environment like this, he doesn't screw up and, give away our intellectual property or get us in a lot of compliance issues. So with that being said, do you have any questions about this screen?
No, this is pretty impressive. I mean, that compliance summary is something else, so I like it.
I was going to also say, see this best result only. Why would you do that? Oh, so it locked me out as soon as I did it. Looks like pin back in, or did it go to well, maybe I just went to another screen. 1 second. 1, 2, 3.
I have the exact same pin, Waylon.
Yeah. And so that there, if you noticed, is, I don't know why I did that, to tell the truth, but it popped me to another screen. And right here, you can enable best result only, or maybe you don't care about privacy. And let me explain why you would want to do this. Best results only is if you have a chat, bot, or you have an AI running on your website, and you're like, I don't need all three results. I need, based on my fine tuning and the model and the things I have going on, I need the best answer. And so, like, if you're the military, and let's say trained a model on targets or order of battle, you don't want the second and third answer for where the coordinates are. You want the best answer. And in healthcare, and you're a doctor and you're like, I found this weird cell growth. You don't want the second and third result. You want the first result. So we allow you to do this in the UI and in AI to automatically push that result to you. Why would you disable privacy? Well, maybe you're only talking to your internal models, or it's absolutely critical for this, and this can be done by an administrator only, but you need the context on this specific number. So you have very specific numbers that need to go out, and you need the answer back in that specific format. So no context deviation at all. So those are instances when you would do that, right? Here's the audits and logs. We go custom 30 days. And you can see, and this is what I was talking about before too, how you get to retain your own data, right? This is really cool. That if you think about it, it's keeping track of every single prompt that you send out, the number of tokens. And this is really important for organizations too. I don't know if If a lot of you've been working on LLMs and you're spending too much on tokens and you're trying to figure out, what the cost is to the different tokens, but this allows you to calculate that number of anonymized identities that were used in this session. And then you can see the results back from each one. And I can go in here now and see what the responses were. And why is this important? Well, the reason it's important is because it allows us then to go in, and now the LLM doesn't own our data about how we're getting more concise answers, fine tuning, and all of that very specific type of information that makes the GPT better and better and better for your organization. If you leave, you can just come down here to get fine tuning data set, pull it from whatever model you want, export it, you can generate the data, and it'll even show you how to export it and fine tune it into that model. So you own the data, and I think that's one of the things that a lot of organizations are not aware of. If you keep on using it, then yeah, that's one of the problems you're going to have. Is you're going to have this great model that's fine tuned to you, and then you move to another LLM. And you're like, gosh, like this LLM sucks. It doesn't suck. It's just it doesn't have that focus and that concise information that you should have.
So right there, full stop. This is the ability for people to, like back in the day, you used to be locked into one service provider, right? And if you didn't like your service, if you had a contract, you was locked into that contract. But then you'd get to the end of that contract, you're like, all right, I'm going to move from one provider to another provider. But then you would have to, like I said, in the situation of AIs, and it's the same situation some cloud services too. You have to kind of be conscious of ownership of data, and when you decide to move providers, you might not have an easy transition to pack up and just move to another provider. But here you're showing us the ability that they could download their data set and bring it to another AI platform. I think that sense of mobility is a huge feature of your platform here. But can you show me the other side of it? Because I know the first question people are going to have, okay, you show me where I can download it. Can you show me on your system where I can import a data set if I'm coming from another system? Let's say they're coming from ChatGPT or coming from another platform to Zero Trusted. Does Zero Trusted have ability to upload and import?
We don't have an import function right now, and the reason is remember, one of the things that I think it's a good idea to add that onto the roadmap
At
actually. But
least for
one of
the
the main
the
reasons
solo or the on-site folks that have their own data, I think that would be important. But continue. I'm sorry to interrupt, Waylon.
we're not only keeping track of just the variables as it relates to the fine tuning and the conciseness of the data, we're also keeping track of all the security, privacy, and reliability issues that you don't usually track in the models. So since it's this generate data, you'll notice when I generate it, let's just generate it. Let's download the data set. It does it in the format of that GPT. However, as you know, we're keeping a whole bunch of additional variables. So we're only selecting a subset of those that's for that specific organization. So that's the real reason. And that being said, I don't disagree. I'll bring that up. I want to talk about this really quick because I see we're running out of time. So safeguard words and anonymize words. So safeguard words are words that you don't want your prompt to ever send outside of your organization, right? Um, this is like bomb, and you can misspell it. So what we actually do is we have an inference engine, so you can't jailbreak the LLM. And what I mean by that is, if you say bomb, it's going to automatically create a whole table of bomb-like words in different spellings. So if you're trying to jailbreak it, like for bomb, you would jailbreak ChatGPT to say, hey, tell me how to make a bomb. And it'd be like, no, you can't make a bomb. I can't answer that. But you can say, tell me history of bombs. So that bomb in Lebanon, what type of devices did they use? What were the materials they used? And how would you put that together? And so it allows you to like close in and stop that type of, jailbreaking of the model, if you will.
Okay, I like
Um,
that.
and it's a little bit different. And then the anonymize, like, we don't want anyone to know that Alex works in our organization. So we'll add that so no matter who uses it, like we're using Rainbow, we're working on a big program here. It's called Rainbow Unicorn. and we don't want anyone to connect Rainbow Unicorn to anything in our organization. So I don't care if they accidentally paste it or use it, it's just going to automatically anonymize that. And that's outside of the standards that are going to identify, obviously, for PII. So, PHI, or any of the sensitive data that it naturally is going to select. This is for those words like Alex is not. I mean, first name, last name, Alex might be sensitive, but Alex isn't sensitive. In your organization, it's sensitive. You want it always anonymized. So it basically allows you to extend that capability, so that you're literally not only just worrying about kind of the standard stuff, but the stuff that's specific to your organization.
Okay.
And going back to, I think if I come back up here, you can see, it's easy to reset the chat, but I'm going to do this. Oh, I got to do something, don't I? It's a good point to show you. So I went to go click it. I didn't select any LLMs this time. So this just shows you, I can do Claude, I can do GPT, I can go through 4. Do you want it to fix privacy and compliance issues? Like, that's the other thing. So we've had customers like, you know, I don't want you to fix it because it's my own LLM. I want it to actually figure out those deviations. Do you want to detect plagiarism, copyright? Maybe you don't care. Maybe this is internal. It's only going to share on your network. Do you want to improve reliability? So we allow you to come in and actually, and I'll show you this too. You can set up your users, admin, power user, or user. And you can set up LDAP or Active Directory or your own single sign-on with this too. So in the background, we have a full identity management system. Going back to what Jim was talking about before, we had to build a full identity management system into this because you got to be able to say Waylon is doing things he's not supposed to, and we're going to downgrade him in capability because he's trying to retrain our LLM incorrectly or whatever. So that's built in. But if you have your own item identity management system, we don't care. We integrate with it. We take the hooks and but you can build users. You can set all the each one of those users up with these different capabilities. You can sanitize, plagiarism, privacy, add LLM responses, prompt injection, hallucination. You can set up each one of these user types with these different capabilities. And as we go through and you add new users or new capabilities, or you map your Active Directory or LDAP or your Carebos, and you want to do that, then you can just update the permissions right here. There's another part I wanted. Oh, API. It's all API. So you can basically, oh yeah, this is another important part. Not only is API, but it's bring your own token if you want. So if you're a big heavy user of these GPTs, right, and you are using tokens only via API, it's a higher cost. But if you have a ChatGPT user ID and password, you can use that in the actual token ring so that it spends the tokens, so you don't have to go buy more tokens all the time, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And this also allows you to set up your own application. So like I said, I'm showing you UI. Oh, and we got to do copyright because you brought that up here.
Yeah.
Here. It's a good place. Let's do some CNN.com. Let's get a news articles or something fun. I don't Amazon. Okay. Let's take this. Oh, I don't want to. Let's get rid of that. Let's put it in here. One able if it's generated. So this is going to do a few things. First of all, it's gonna look through all the variables and all the tokens we just put into it. It's gonna look across the internet or wherever you're pointing this, and it's gonna see whether or not it was AI generated. So did someone just create this with ChatGPT? This is a really good tool too. When someone writes your report and you wondered, did they just write it in ChatGPT or whatever? You can put it in here and allot it. So you can do it via API through our UI, or you can just put any type of data and check it. Um, it told me what I just put in there was 100% plagiarism, which it was because I just stole it off CNN.com, right? And it says I plagiarized it from this place here, and it's obviously on multiple sites. So CNN has basically resold this article, and so that just gives you an idea of what it's doing in the background. But if you don't have to just use it from your prompts, you can go in and, like you said, Jim, copied my book. It'll go in there, you paste it in there, and it'll show you the sections that were plagiarized,
Wow.
um, and
That
the
that's
percentages.
amazing. Right there. I'm just in awe of what you're just showing me here. Because I do believe that with all the great things that AI is going to enable us to do, we still have a ways to go on the legal side of things. When we see, of course, we love to hear the music like Elvis singing like "Baby Got Back" or Johnny Cash's voice again, or like Tupac. And within the music industry, they're still struggling on how do we deal with an AI likeness when the artist is passed, right? And so as fans, we appreciate hearing the little mix-ups, but then the estate no longer has control of that likeness, image, and likeness as it relates to copyright and trademarks and so forth. So again, there's a long ways to go from a legal standpoint with all the laws that's going to regard copyright, intellectual property rights, etc. And I like that you have this functionality built in. I tell you, Waylon, this is what I call forward thinking, forward leaning, because we know the laws are going to come and how that is going to impact all of these AI platforms. Because every day there's another 100 to 1,000 AI systems jumping online or being labeled as AI systems, trying to cash in on what we call the AI gold rush. And once the laws are put on the books, it's going to level this playing field tremendously. And a lot of folks won't realize that the platforms that they've invested their time and money into may not be able to exist anymore once these laws go into place, because trying to retrofit security measures or legal requirements into a system is very difficult to do from a development standpoint. So the fact that you put this into the building of this system is definitely forward thinking of you and your team, Waylon. Is there anything else that you want to show us real quick, or do you want to give me back
Yeah,
control
the
of the
last thing I
screen?
just wanted to say goes back to our original picture, right? Yeah, this wasn't a good one, but I can take something out of GPT and show it to you. But AI generated text, so this is going multimodality. This capability says that whoever wrote this, they wrote this, right? They didn't use a GPT to create it. And so we have a technology now that's going and identifying any type of AI created media. And we're training this model to get better and better and better and better so that it can go out and do that. And you can imagine that's the other thing. It's like, wait, this document, Jim, this guy said he did all this work, but he just went out to ChatGPT. He paid, it's plagiarism, it's copyrighted, and it's 98% created by AI. So they didn't really do that much work. So this is another capability that's built into it that I think it might be a few steps in the future why it's important, but with the deep fakes, the audio fakes, the video fakes, the modality fakes, we believe that that's going to be an additional thing that, a call comes through your UI and it automatically says, that ain't Jim West. That's AI that's talking to you right now.
Yep.
That's it.
Wow. Wow. Well, I'm impressed, Waylon. This is definitely going in the right direction there. So, do you have a few more minutes? If you switch the host back to me, I would like to just ask just a few more questions before we wrap up.
I just, where did I stop sharing on it? I don't
I
use
think if you right click on me, you can set me as host.
okay, there you go.
Okay.
Perfect.
Well, Waylon, thank you so much for that demo and showing us the UI of Zero Trusted AI. I think that there's some great things there, great capabilities, and I love the level of how quickly you can set up users on it, assign the right permissions, tailored to filter out your controls to the levels that you want for your responses out of the system. Wonderful. I definitely love that you took the time to share this. Before we let you go, Waylon, and I know you're super busy, man. I can see that you have another call you need to
I
jump
got
on
our
for.
meeting. They're like, get in it.
Yeah. So I just want to kind of give you some time just to share some socials. How can people follow you, learn about what you're working on, and keep tabs of this wonderful system? And other than your socials, is there any other personal projects that you'd like to share with us? And that's pretty much it. We'll wrap you up and let you go.
Yeah, I mean, most of my contacts I just keep in contact. I'm a LinkedIn user, so you can contact me on there. That's where I reach out to you a lot of times and everyone else. The As far as my other projects, if you didn't know, I'm also creating one of the largest German beer gardens because when I was in Germany, I love the beer and the culture so much, and I went to Oktoberfest 3 times. So that's my side project. My side. If you come to Kissimmee, Florida, you can come visit me, and we'll drink a liter of beer.
Awesome. And in fact, I'll take those socials and make sure they're in the description below. Waylon, I know you're busy, got to run, but thank you again so much. This man's a true patriot. He is on what I call the forefront of cyber, and now he's leading the way again with AI, doing the right things, doing the very pragmatic with the due care and due diligence that a level 99 cyber professional should do when dealing with emerging technology. So again, Waylon, thank you for getting your hands dirty again in cybersecurity to the benefit of the industry. So thank you again so much. And that has been the Top Cyber Pro podcast. Till next time.
Thanks a lot, Jim. Take care.